week, every single weekday.
There you go.
Which
Third time's the
Wednesday is a
charm.
weekday, I believe.
Yes.
We do it every single weekday at 2:30 p.m. PT. That's 5:30 p.m. Eastern.
And we're live now.
Good evening, everybody. It is Amala here with Australian News Network. Now, I'm coming to you with breaking news because we have a COVID outbreak right now in Australia. And by that, I mean one lone person has now contracted COVID. She is a 17-year-old girl out in Sydney. And from the reports that we've gotten from her, she is feeling fine. However, we are now going to go into an extreme lockdown measure here in Australia. Coming to us in the field, we have Dr. Wombat to let us know what the regulations are going to be. Dr. Wombat, to you.
Oi, g'day, mate. It's Dr. Wombat here. Yeah, we got some crazy stuff happening in Australia right now. We got lots of dingoes coming up in the countryside, talking to people, and we have unvaccinated people in our country, which is no. So, if you decide not to get the jab, or if you get COVID, we're going to take you out to the outback with kangaroos and leave you out there until you're all better.
Thank you, Dr.
Or die.
Wombat. I have a question for you, Dr. Wombat.
Right.
What are we going to be doing with our public schools, our grocery stores, things of that matter? Are they going to be open?
Right, well, it's a pretty easy task, mate. You got to comply or die. One or the other.
Thank you, Dr. Wombat. Now, we also have a special celebrity guest today in the studio. It's going to be Chris Hemsworth talking about vaccinations. Chris Hemsworth, thank you.
Oh, I didn't know we were going that route. I thought I was going to be a different character.
That's
No.
Dr. Ew.
He's
You're
also
Dr.
confused about his accent.
You're
Gosh,
Chris Hemsworth.
Like, crikey.
Crikey, mate.
I was busy eating my Vegemite and blooming onions over here. And now I'm just confused. Who am I?
Thank you, Chris.
So, mate, we got a complete and total shutdown until we figure out what the hell is going on. And anyone who is not vaccinated, it's illegal.
Thank
Alright.
you. That has been Australian News Network. Again, I'm your host, Amala. And if you are not in your house quarantined, locked down right now, you will be immediately arrested.
Comply or die. Comply or die.
And scene. Wow. That
We got
was
people on Instagram watching now, too. We got an Instagram Live. There's probably some people who follow us on Instagram, and they're like, oh, this is what their show is like?
I'm never watching that show, ever.
I'm never
Oh my
going on
gosh.
YouTube to watch that show.
But guess what? We do a skit every single show opening, and there's a reason why we do that. It always links to one of the stories that we're going to talk about. So we want to show you footage of Australian news, believe it or not. And this is their reaction to a recent COVID outbreak, as they call it. Here's the clip.
Good evening. Within hours, Sydney will be in the grip of much tougher restrictions. The Premier clamping down on the stubborn Delta outbreak with what she's calling a no-regrets policy. And this is why. From a record 82,000 tests, the state today recorded 111 cases. And tragically, the third COVID death in this outbreak, a man aged in his 80s from the city's southeast. Across Greater Sydney, retail shops will now close. A small list of essential stores can remain open. Construction sites across the city shut down. And from midnight tonight, 110 suburbs across Liverpool, Fairfield and Canterbury Bankstown will be sealed shut. That's 900,000 residents who can't leave their area, even for work. Good evening.
Wow.
The one day we don't do our test page,
I know.
I was like,
seriously.
guys, we
Beginning
should
of
do
the
the test page to make sure the audio's working right.
Well,
and Will's like,
It's
no,
okay.
we don't. We just did it this
Well,
morning.
we're starting
We don't
late.
need
My
to."
mom's going to be upset with me. You know
We
how
can't
ornery she
make-
gets.
We can't make Will's mom upset.
No, she trust me, she's coming into town this weekend. If I make her upset today, there's going to be hell to pay when
But-
she comes in.
I mean, regardless, you guys heard the gist of that. They had a small outbreak of COVID-19 in Australia, which resulted in one death of a man in his 80s. And they've subsequently decided to shut down nearly everything.
How does that make any sense? Why are they allowed to do that? Why is the government allowed to come in and tell you that you're not allowed to go to work when there is a chance of one person dying in the entire sanctity or vicinity of that place?
Right. It makes absolutely no sense. And to do that, what she said in this news report is 900,000 people are now going to be locked within their homes now and unable to leave their residential area. Blows my mind.
I don't like it.
I was waiting for
It's
the
like,
I don't like
thought
it.
we obviously didn't learn our lesson from the first 2 lockdowns or however many we've done. Like, people just took this, I guess.
COVID's not going away.
Like in France, they did the vaccine passport thing and people were like rioting in the streets. Where
they did it in Germany too. They did it in Germany too. And people in Germany were going all over the place. But it's like, COVID's not going to go away. I think governments are thinking, because they're stupid and don't understand science, that COVID is just going to go away if everyone just stays home or everyone gets vaccinated. But like, COVID is like, it's like the flu. Even though we've had a vaccine for the flu for a long time, people still get the flu. That's life. That's how things go. That happens, okay? You have to live a life that is beyond just trying to stay safe in your little bubble. And you shut down the entire place based on one death. One death. Like, what are you doing?
I hope people rise up because of this and actually say something and do something about this, because it's just unwarranted. And anybody who just watched that news clip knows that it's unwarranted. It makes no sense. And nothing has made sense in regard to COVID since it started, since we've been getting information about this, albeit the wrong information. So it's very unfortunate to see countries like this go in this direction. And what I want to see is people who decide not to take it, decide not to let the government tell them what they do with their lives. But there are going to be a large sum of people who don't do that, who just listen and just are at the beck and call of the government.
I don't want to exaggerate. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, okay? Instagram audience, first time watching, I don't exaggerate, all right? I'm always very keen about everything I say. But Australia, they had their guns taken away, okay? They had a gun buyback in Australia where they literally sold their guns back to the government. So now you have people in Australia who are unarmed. Your government comes in and tells you that you have to shut down your businesses. And who are the only people with guns now? The government.
Right.
The government has guns. So what are you going to have in Australia? I mean, I can't see this being anything good where the people of Australia are having some sort of kumbaya, coming together and saying, yes, we're so happy about this. Thank you for locking us down again, mate. I think they're going to have a really tough time. And I think that when people are starting to realize that, wow, we gave the government all this power and now there's literally no way to get it back, then yeah, that is a very scary thing for many of the people who live there.
Right.
I just hate the people who talk about government tyranny and say that it can't happen. It can't happen here. But it's like
This is an example.
This is such
happening.
an example. They say, oh, this is an America. This is the 21st century, right? Government tyranny doesn't happen anymore. Like that's a thing of the past. That's a thing of Stalinism and Leninism. Like those things don't happen anymore. But they do. They happen. They can happen all over the world, and it can happen in a matter of years. It only takes one step for a country, for the people who live in that country to lose their rights. And then once they've lost their rights, it is almost impossible to get them back because the government will continue to take more and more power. Right. Imagine being a politician trying to get elected, coming on and saying, I want to give people more freedom and I also want to give up my own power. It doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. The government, all it can do is take more and more power away from the individual.
And COVID-19 is a brilliant vessel to do this. And new guy Scott and I were talking about this morning. You want to say hi, Scott?
Everyone.
We were talking about how it's so powerful to do this with COVID-19 because people have this innate fear of death. And we have a very bad relationship with death in this country and seemingly in other countries around the world. And you can use that vessel to fearmonger and make people afraid for their lives, even though there's no science to back that up. There's no analytics to back that up. And they will listen to you. They will do exactly what you say. So it's so unfortunate to allow something that in itself is very scary. If the actual stuff they were putting out around this were true, it would be terrifying. But it's not, and they're tricking people into complying.
Yes, they are. I mean, throughout world history, I mean, looking at how diseases have affected the history and the populations of the world, I mean, just looking at how many people have died from past diseases, like the plague or tons of other things, I mean, it is like half of the population of Europe dying because of something, you know? And this is like, I get that some people want to feel safe, but you can't feel safe forever. All right? The time for safety is over. You don't become a man by being safe.
So true.
True statement for Instagram audience. You don't become a man by being safe. You become a man by taking on risks and taking on things that are dangerous. You should live dangerously. You should not doesn't mean putting yourself in stupid situations like jumping off a bridge and seeing if you live. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about putting yourself in situations where things might not always go your way, but you're taking a risk to have a better life, to achieve more with your life than the status quo of all the people who would put safety above freedom. So, I mean, Australia doing this, I hope, I don't know how much faith I have in my people down under, but I would love it if they would choose freedom over safety and not look to the government to provide them with all of the tools necessary for them to live happy lives, because the government can't give you those tools. Like an ideology that is powered by other people, that is powered by politicians who get money for their jobs to be in power from you. Like, you don't get any sort of ideological benefits from that.
Very true. So Australia, we are praying for you. We hope that you guys wake up and rise up against this, because it's just not right. I'm going to get into a couple super chats that we've gotten over the course of this story. Jake Chekalinsky says, will you guys be answering super chats?
No.
It was very well used, Jake. Very well used. Next one, Ohio Gem gave us a $25 super chat and said, gang, gang.
Gang, gang, mate.
Gang, gang, mate.
Dr. Wombat.
Oi, oi. Now, you know how some people, live life outside of safety? By eating ice cream.
Oh, well, that is definitely unsafe.
That is very unsafe. And it's going to lead us into our next story, which is an ice cream brand that you should not be eating. And if you've not been
Are we
keeping
letting Instagram stay and watch this?
No, we're not. Sorry, guys. Instagram. You guys have to go. If you want to watch us, you can watch on YouTube and on Facebook at PragerU.
Yeah, go PragerU, Facebook,
Come
YouTube.
catch the rest.
Yeah,
Party. Come join the rest of the stream.
That's every single
Facebook.
day. Every single weekday. Join us.
To all of the loyal
Bye,
people
guys.
watching on YouTube and Facebook, let's get into our next story. This one is based around Ben & Jerry's, an ice cream chain that I once loved. What about you guys?
Well, I don't eat ice cream. I come from a family of very sensitive teeth, so I don't really eat ice cream. I had some ice cream the other night.
Take a risk, Will. Be a man.
Yeah, I'm obviously...
Safety is not important, Will, to being a man.
Wow, you guys really got me there. I should... Go get me some ice cream. I will eat it live on stream right now. If someone can go give me some ice cream. Lauren, come back and give me ice cream. No, but I have sensitive teeth, so when I eat ice cream, it hurts my teeth. I'm not very good with it. I have like special toothpaste I use.
Well, guess what? You don't have to worry about eating Ben & Jerry's anymore, because we are boycotting Ben & Jerry's. I'm glad you weren't worried about it, because you never will have to be worried about it. Ben & Jerry's has been a woke company for ages now. This is nothing new, but they've launched a new endeavor, and that is the fact that Ben & Jerry's is no longer going to be selling their ice cream products in any occupied Palestinian territory. It's been an interesting announcement to make, but they're getting a lot of heat for being anti-Semitic, which is really interesting, because I looked into Ben & Jerry's, and both Ben and Jerry are Jewish men. So it goes to show how culturally you can be indoctrinated into believing an ideology that doesn't even support you. So they will no longer be selling their products in occupied Palestinian territory.
Well, I don't know why. I mean, do they even eat ice cream in Israel?
Yes.
Yes?
I would assume they eat ice cream in Israel.
I just had to
or
check.
else we wouldn't be having this argument
No, that's
now.
true. Listen, all of these types of statements are, you can make this statement. You can say, I'm not going to sell it here. I'm going to do whatever I want. To me, it's really not that big of a deal. I really don't care that much if these companies come out and make big leftist statements. All I need from you guys, from the viewers watching, is to stop giving your money to them. That is all you have to do. I could care less about what any company says, as long as the people in America promise to boycott companies that hate the things that they hold dear.
Right.
That is all you have to do. Who cares what some idiot CEO at some huge corporation says? A guy who is Jewish, who is basically turning his back on the state of Israel. And who cares? Who cares what this... He makes ice cream. This guy makes ice cream. His opinion means nothing. He is not well read. He doesn't know about the world that's actually going on. If he did, he wouldn't be doing this. So who cares what these people say? All you need to care about is that if this company supports my values, I will support them. If they do not, I do not want to support them. The reason why Ben & Jerry's has the gaffe to come and make a statement like this and be able to do this is because you guys keep buying their stupid ice cream.
Right.
Conservatives keep buying Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Stop buying ice cream that hates you.
If this story is not enough for you to not like Ben & Jerry's, let me tell you a personal story, my personal experience with the company that is Ben & Jerry's.
How are you victimized by Ben & Jerry's?
I will explain. I'll explain how you're all victimized by Ben & Jerry's. Because when I was 17 and I started working for this leftist organization, I was doing a lot of door knocking, a lot of outdoor campaigning. I was going out and talking to young college-age students, high school students, and getting them influenced, getting them into our organization, which eventually funneled them through, the funnel that is leftist ideology and socialist indoctrination. And Ben & Jerry's partnered with the organization that I was working with. And what they would do is they would give us Ben & Jerry's carts and have their workers come out and set up on the side of the street. So people would come to get free Ben & Jerry's. And through that vessel, we would indoctrinate them and get them to fill out little voter cards, get them tapped into what issues they wanted to work on. Of course, all leftist issues. So women's reproductive rights, immigration, social justice, environmental racism, anything you could think of. And that was how we would get members for our organization, was by using Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
Like a moth to the flame. They just go to get Ben & Jerry's, and the
Right.
next thing you know, they're indoctrinated.
So if their stance on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was not enough for you, that should do it. Now we do have a couple more super chats, which I don't ever want to miss your guys' super chats. Jesse Castaneda says the great Mel Gibson tried to warn everybody in the 80s on what this type of governance does, referring to Australia and totalitarianism and that sort of authoritarian view. Joel Rolston said, not all ice cream is kosher. I learned that with Brewster's, so they're losing a profit anyway in a kosher culture. No wonder. LOL. I didn't know that.
That chocolate fudge brownie one, though, when I do get to eat ice cream, is really good. And the cinnamon bun one.
I know, it sucks. They make good ice cream. I mean,
Dude,
it's like
good.
you like
It's
Chipotle,
good.
but you stop eating there because
Right.
they are attacking your values.
Exactly. I stopped eating at Chipotle.
And here's a question for you guys. Jake Chekalinsky sent us another super chat, said, is there an actual documented full-blown case where a city defunded their police department and crime rose a lot and then they refunded their police department?
Yeah, I mean, that happened in Minneapolis.
Yep.
Minneapolis.
I think that happened in several cities.
It did.
Seattle.
Portland
Los
experienced it.
Los Angeles was calling for more police after they defunded it. So, yeah, it happened all over the country. Yeah.
Did time and time again,
Baltimore.
which is time and time again, which is, that's how it happens. It's only logical to know that B comes after A and C
Ben
comes
and
after
Jerry's
B.
have a defund the police like ice cream or something? I'm
They
pretty sure
definitely
came out.
contributed
Jerry's?
to the
Yeah.
movement. They definitely contributed to the defund the police movement.
Yeah, didn't we talk about this on Will Wit Live when we were still doing Will Live? Wasn't
Back
there
in
a...
the day.
Back in the day, wasn't there a ice cream that was Ben & Jerry's? I feel like I am remembering...
If you're gonna
that
see
we
it in
did
the chat,
something about this.
let us know.
Another super chat here from Finance from the Couch. Love you guys. I was applying for a job last night and I was really excited for it. Got to the end of the application and was asked if I identified as transgender and what my sexuality was. I exited the application.
I hope you told him, yes, get that job. Get a raise, baby.
Oh yeah, here it is. Ben and Jerry's defund the police, defend black communities. This Juneteenth is more. It's from 2020, Juneteenth. They did a whole defund the police. Learn more about how defund the police works and why we so desperately need to have a thing on their website for it. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm
They're so
super
woke.
positive that we did that. And they're also super about climate change and white privilege, all that stuff, Ben & Jerry's. Like, they're all about it.
The super chats are coming like crazy today, guys.
Oh,
Here we
Well,
go.
only take ones that are like $5 and above.
They're all $5 and above.
All right, take $10 and above.
Gatlin Holden, being in a liberal city, have y'all made conservative friends outside of work? And if so, how? This is an excellent plug for Prager Force. If you are a high school student, college student, or a young professional under the age of 35, you can join Prager Force, which is a digital community of like-minded conservative individuals through PragerU. So go to pragerforce.com and apply. If you are above the age of 35, I would suggest just going out to different places, different hobbies that you like, and being outward about your political views. Politics tends to come up whether you like it or not, and I'm sure you'll find like-minded people who will support you. If you don't, go to places where conservatives are likely to be. Churches, PragerU, libraries, anywhere where there's reading or research.
Yeah, anywhere where people have a semblance of thinking.
Yeah, I'll say I did not have, before I started, I've been in LA for several years, and I did not have many conservative friends here, other than people I met in church and stuff. But after I started working at PragerU and like people saw me on some of the content and stuff, I had friends of mine in LA that would like message me and be like, bro, saw you work for PragerU. I'm a conservative too.
Right.
You know? And which is part of the problem. But anyway, so I found out some friends I had were closet conservatives after I started working here.
I have no problem with not being friends with people on the left. I know some people are like, they say, oh, the left and the right, we got to come together, be friends.
This isn't a hot take segment, Will.
I know, but I'm just saying, this made me think about that. Like, this person wants to transition children. How can I be a friend with that person? This person wants to destroy the values of America. Why would I want to be this person's friend? Why do conservatives continually be friends with people who obviously hate everything they stand for?
I have empathy for people who are on the left.
No, you can have
That is my
empathy.
thing.
You can have empathy for them, but why do you have to be their friend? I don't want to hang out with you. I have nothing that I want to share my values with you.
I'm interested in persuading open-minded people.
Right.
Right, you can persuade people, but
yeah.
I'm saying you can persuade people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying people who continually be friends with people who have values that are anti-American, anti-things that they love, that actively look to destroy the country.
I get my.
Why would you be that person's friend?
My only pushback to that is that if there's going to be somebody who's going to change your mind and make tangible change in your life, it is going to be somebody who treats you as a friend. It's not going to be somebody.
I disagree.
It's going to be somebody. It's the same thing that happened to me. One of my best friends for years of my life was a super outwardly conservative Christian girl, and we would get into little debates. They weren't arguments. We would talk about our differing beliefs, and in doing that, I made her belief stronger as a Christian conservative, and she challenged mine. And you need somebody who's not only going to challenge your beliefs, but who's going to treat you kindly, and that's what friends do. So
I think the people who change minds the most are role models. I think you need to have role models. Young people don't have enough role models within culture and society, especially in family values, all of that. Those are the people who should be influencing changing your mind. I just don't see why I need to be friends with people who disagree with me so vehemently. Who, if I say I want smaller government, I want God back in America, all these things, and they say, no, that's horrible. Why would I be that person's friend?
I would say because coming from my perspective of being a former leftist, I did not fully understand the scope of what I was saying or the impact of what I was saying. Obviously, I didn't understand how important God was. I didn't understand how important country was. I didn't understand how important it was to not only uphold the foundation of your country, but to actively work every day to make your country better. And if you can come to somebody as a friend, give them empathy in sort of trying to understand where they're coming from, that's going to be the best way to change their viewpoint.
Yeah, I agree.
Taylor, you
I think you have to, it depends, life is complicated, relationships are complicated. A lot of times it's family members and people you don't have an option to just cut out of your life. And I think approaching those type of relationships, whether it's coworkers, things like that, with a degree of graciousness and honesty, and being willing to have conversations and being willing to understand who they are, understand their perspective before trying to impose yours on them, that is, or cut them out of your life before they even have a chance to know what your perspective truly is. I think, there's truth to what you're saying, Will, in the sense that, like, we do need, some people are going to be out there very outspoken and occupy that space in the, media landscape and in the world. And hey, those people are going to be out there, and that's great. But for a lot of people living day-to-day lives, it can make for, I don't know, it can put you in a really tough situation. And also there are those people who are on the very outspoken about their beliefs and very closed off to other people who disagree with them. A lot of people will never be reached by those people. And we need people in the middle who still have contact and still have enough of a ear. The other people that they're in contact with will give them ear that they would never listen to someone like you.
Well, but you shouldn't listen to someone like me. I'm evil. But no, I just feel like it's like ancient Greeks being friends with Persians. Would they ever be friends? No, of course not. Why would they do that? These people totally diametrically
friends,
oppose each other.
For example, I have hobbies and I play beach volleyball and stuff, and I have lots of friends that from beach volleyball who would invite me to their birthday parties and stuff, but we disagree on politics, but I choose not to let politics dominate that relationship, because we can sort of, I don't need to bring that into that.
Values, not politics, though.
I know, but they're my friend. They're my friend.
I'm saying I wouldn't want to be their friend.
I know. And I'm saying I don't think that's how I would approach it.
I understand. I'm just saying, if this person says they want to destroy America, why would I be that person's friend?
I agree with that.
There's no point. If someone says I want
the average sheep person who's just following mainstream narrative.
I disagree.
Who do you disagree with?
I disagree with that statement.
Yeah.
Because that's who I was. I disagree with that. And I think
most people aren't trying to actively destroy America and assault your values. They're just complicit in the main narrative and don't really know any better. And so if you don't give them space to be exposed to other ideas and a different perspective, because a lot of people Amala, you testified to this, you were trained to be afraid of conservatives and believe that they were all racist and trying to, people actually have a caricature perspective of us, just like many people on the right can have a caricature perspective of people on the left and think that they all are Antifa warriors at night. And that's not, most people are somewhat reasonable or willing to be persuaded if you're willing to make the argument.
I get that. But in the media and Hollywood and the universities, all being dominated by the left, pushing conservatives out, censoring conservatives on social media, firing people for conservative beliefs, hating on people for who they voted for in the election, ostracizing them from their communities and churches because they are conservative, and you're telling me that we're the ones who have to come together and be friends with these people? Hell no. No way. They're the ones who hate this country and hate the values that we were founded on. I want to win. I want to win. I want our ideas to win.
K-Peck says, Will should know that only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Oh my gosh.
That was a great comment.
There are
Thank
always two.
Amala, weigh in.
Weigh in? Okay. Here's my weigh in on this. I think the typical leftist that you meet on the street, and these are the ones who will say, I hate America, or this nation is founded in white supremacy, or I'm anti-God, is not actually saying that because they truly believe it. I think it's a beast born out of empathy. Now, if you want to talk about leftist bureaucrats, if you want to talk about the puppet masters behind all the social issues that we talk about today, those people are evil because they do know the truth and they do know the impact that they're having. And the typical leftist that you meet on the street is not somebody who truly hates this country or hates other people. They have just been brainwashed. Again, a beast of empathy. They hear these sad stories that are put out in the news and they attribute that to a larger pattern or a larger trend of something that's happened in our country. It's happened in our history. And if you are lied to, I have empathy for you and I would want to be your friend because I think I can influence you and tell you the truth in a way that is kind, not condescending, and that will be more likely to change your mind. That's my perspective.
No, it's a fair perspective.
Right.
I don't agree, but it's a fair perspective.
I think most leftist people think that they're doing the right thing. And if the basis of your political thought and your political beliefs is empathy and thinking that you're doing the right thing for people, then great. That's common ground that we share. As long as we share that common ground. Now, if that ever gets distorted and you are doing it and you are well aware of the fact that you are harming other people and that you're harming this country, then we're having a different discussion. But most of them think that they are doing the right thing. Yeah.
Right.
Amen.
Anyways, that's my
Because I totally changed on this. I was always like the people like it was always like, oh, conservatives will be friends with leftists, but leftists won't be friends with conservatives. That was the argument. I mean, I did videos on this about. I went and shot people on the street or shot a video on the street asking people about if they would be friends with a Republican and people if they'd be friends with Democrat. And of course, all the leftists are like, no, I would never be friends with a Republican. The Republicans are like, yeah, I'd be friends with a Democrat. And now I'm like, this is why we lose. Because conservatives say, we'll be friends with you, and leftists say, no, we want to beat you, and we want to win.
Wouldn't the Christian argument be to be friends?
The Christian
The
argument.
the Christian argument says love your enemies, not be friends with your enemies.
I don't know. I just think it's like you go where the darkness is, and if the darkness is there, then that's where you are. Those are your friends.
This is what I do. I go in and interview people, and I'm trying to change people's minds, but I'm not going to go grab a beer with you. I don't want to hang out with you. I have no desire. To go ice skating with you or whatever. Like, if we don't agree on these kind of things, then I don't want to do things that don't have to do with politics with you. I only want to try and change your mind. That's like, I know that sounds tough, but I get it.
No, I mean, everybody's different.
But it's like, you have a short life. You have a short life. Are you going to spend your life sitting around with people who, if they knew about the things that you believed in, hated you for it? There's no point. There's no point. You should go out there trying to change people's minds, being a warrior, putting yourself in tough situations. But don't spend your time wishing that the people who totally hate your values liked you. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. To each their own, to thine own self be true, as Shakespeare would say.
What is the chat saying?
The chat is all over the place.
Chad, I understand if you don't agree.
Some people say I agree with Will.
No,
some people say they agree with me.
Have that mentality, and I will say, like, if you have that mentality, then there's room for that. But there's a lot of people that will never be exposed to ideas that could change their mind, never be exposed to the truth. And I think the conservative movement is big enough for people who are hey, we're the warriors. We're not going to sit down and have a beer with anybody. And people who are willing to do more outreach to the other side. And
you need both.
Yeah, and I think you do need both.
You do need both.
Right. Well, maybe I'm speaking for myself then.
Yeah.
Of course you are. But you're also speaking for a lot of people who, have the same mentality and same approach. And I think there can be an argument for being very outspoken about your beliefs and not really giving time of day to, people who have fundamentally different values from you. But I also think that there's certainly an argument for being gracious with the people and giving it a chance to try to change someone's mind.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You can change someone's mind and talk to them. I'm just saying you don't want to do like a bunch of friends. You don't want to go on like a skiing trip with someone who hates
I
the
just
things
guess
you
the
believe in.
approach is different. I think when somebody treats you with the care of a friendship, it sort of puts you on this common ground of, oh, this person really does truly care about me. Not just like sitting and talking to somebody and saying, here are my beliefs and whatever, you go and do your own thing. But when you're friends with somebody, the true care that you get out of friendship is a strong foundation for changing somebody's mind.
No, I
think
get
that's where we
that.
ended.
That is true.
Yeah, like life is deeper than politics. And just because someone disagrees with you politically, it's like you still share humanity. And I think when you're able to connect with people on a human level, that gives you the opportunity to have an influence on them. But when you don't treat them like a human and just treat them like an enemy, then you lose the opportunity to influence them.
Yeah.
Not always. But I understand.
I'd say once someone crosses over through some other means, then they find other people who they already agree with, and like you can help them go further down their growth into the ideas that you believe in. Like Amala didn't start with like listening to someone super abrasive, right?
Right. I actively sought out people who were kind conservatives and not the I'm a lion and you're a sheep and blah 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 and everything you've been taught is a lie and you're an idiot and all this stuff. I don't want to hear that. It just it doesn't work.
But then once you got in, then you're like you
then
started
I can
getting
listen
exposed
to
more
people who
hardcore
are
people.
like that. Yeah.
And they're helpful too. So that's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I get it.
Anyways.
Now that we've gotten through this whole
I don't know if we should do the
philosophical
super chats to
discussion,
send us on a huge.
I
know.
know. Look at the super chats, dude.
It's
Your
also
super
Will
chats
won't,
are
Will
better.
won't back down. So
I'm not
It's
backing
good.
down. I'm just
No,
you
you
say
shouldn't.
something, I say something.
we talked
good. No,
about
it's
this.
good.
We
It's
talked about this. A man or a woman of strong convictions is a
And let
good
us-
man and a good woman.
let us
So,
know if, in the comments, guys, if you'd like to have those type of discussions, or you'd rather have us just go through our stories.
I'm gonna
as
have those
usual.
type of discussions whether the chat likes it or not.
There you
okay.
go.
So
We're always going to go there.
Now
I'm going to lead us into our next story, and this is. It's been a controversial one. This is a story that broke, I think, today, actually. And it's that the Texas Senate bill. Here's the headline. The headline is very different from the actual story itself. The headline is the Texas Senate bill drops teaching requirement that Ku Klux Klan is morally wrong. Now you read this and you go, oh my goodness. How could Texans agree to this? How could they say that we're not going to teach that the Ku Klux Klan was morally wrong? Let's go ahead and preface this. Let's do the disclaimer. Let's do the whole thing we have to do where we say, obviously, the KKK is wrong. Obviously, systemic racism is wrong. Obviously, America did go through a portion of our history that was involved in systemic racism. But let's
isn't
get
it
into...
so stupid that you have to say that?
It is very stupid that I have to say
I know.
that.
I
Like
hate
we can't just
disclaimers.
all agree on that. But if you
Yeah.
don't, the left is going to clip you out
Yeah.
of context and say,
And not just that, like we could get banned.
Right.
Know?
Yeah.
Like they would, they'll say, yeah, PragerU endorses KKK, and the next thing you know,
it's
we're
like,
on
come
Exactly.
on.
YouTube.
Yeah, so this is an article out of HuffPost. You read the headline. Let's get into what this bill actually states. The new bill echoes language from last month's law that bars teachers from requiring students to develop an understanding of the 1619 Project. Okay, so there's line one. No student should be subjected to the 1619 Project. If you're familiar with the 1619 Project, it is a project or a theory that the United States was started in 1619 when the first slave ship entered America.
Yeah, no, it's a ridiculous argument.
Yeah, so the bill also retains the language that teachers may not be compelled to discuss current events or controversial issues of public policy or social affairs, that if they do, they can't have a deference to any one particular perspective. Also great. That's a great distinction to make, that if you're going to talk current events in your class, if you're going to talk politics or political policy, you should not be able to defer to one political leaning with your students.
I disagree again.
Oh my god!
I'm sorry.
Who invited this guy?
Give me it.
I'm sorry. If you're about the school choice stuff, like we talked about before,
Mm-hmm.
like the charter school stuff, like you should be able to have conservative schools. You should be able to have conservative schools. If it's
There
a
are
public
conservative
education,
private
if
schools.
it's a public education, then no.
Well,
it
that's what
needs-
we're talking about
okay,
is
right,
public.
Fine. But
Yeah.
so not just in general, but if it's like a charter school, private school, then you should be able to make as conservative based school as you want.
Yeah, I mean,
or as
under-
leftist school as you want.
If we ever transition to school choice legislation, we'd have to reinvent the wheel, honestly, when it comes to education. But if we ever do transition to school choice, of course, you should be able to go to a school that promotes your political beliefs and your political affiliation. But in public schools, I think this is great. No, if you're going to cover a controversial issue, you should not be able to say, oh, well, the left is right on this one or the right is right on this one in a public
Of
school.
course, you're giving the government your money. You're giving the government your money to teach your children. I didn't give the government my money to tell them to vote to tell my kids how to vote.
Right.
I got them so they learned arithmetic and history and science. That's why I give them money. If you wouldn't send your kid, this is what Dr. Jeff Barkey, a great guy, he said it to me, or he said it on Twitter the other day. But he's like, if you wouldn't send your kids to a church that takes money from the government, why would you send your kids to a school that takes money from the government? It's the exact same thing, because you don't want the government influencing their values when it comes to their faith. Why would you want them influencing their values when it comes to their education?
Yeah, so now the left is running amok with this bill saying, I can't believe conservatives are admitting that they don't want to be teaching true history. One person says, how could a teacher possibly discuss slavery, the Holocaust, or the mass shootings at Walmart in El Paso, or at the Sutherland Springs Church in my district without giving a deference to any perspective?
Well,
I don't know, by telling the objective truth of the matter. That's how you educate people on what has happened without giving a deference to a particular perspective. You tell them the objective truth, which is what you should be doing as a school teacher.
yeah, I mean, the 1619 Project is completely bogus. It's a completely bogus statement. It's not like the first people who came into Europe from the Germanic tribes, and then you have Germany, and then you should start Germany's start from that point after the fall of ancient Rome. Like, of course not. This is a stupid argument. But it's tough because when you say something like the 1619 Project is not real, it's a dumb argument to make that our country was founded in 1619, and somehow that becomes a conservative talking point. You understand? It's like that 10 years ago, that wasn't a conservative talking point. That was just the standard of what history was. That was just the people on the left and people on the right all agreed that that America started in 1776. But now if you say you're against the 1619 Project and want it to go back to the moderate way, you are now a hardline conservative. How stupid is that?
And we
have to pick a side.
It's just so frustrating to look at this. Again, I'm going to show you this headline. Texas Senate bill drops teaching requirement that KKK is morally wrong. And underlying that, the subtext here, eliminated requirements also include the writings of Martin Luther King Jr., United Farm Worker leader Cesar Chavez, and suffragist Susan B. Anthony. Just because it's not a requirement does not mean that your kids are not going to be taught history. It just means now that when your teachers do talk about that, especially when they talk about current events, they're not going to be able to give you their political opinion and indoctrinate your children in that way, which is completely right. So we are witnessing the death of American journalism.
They should put the writings of Cesar Chavez in there. Cesar Chavez would go, and show what he was really about. He would go and beat people at the border. He was like super anti-illegal immigration. He would go and find Mexicans, and they would go and beat people up at the border and send them back to Mexico. That's what Cesar Chavez did.
By the way, we're not condoning.
You don't have to say that. You don't have to say we're condoning it.
I'm just saying.
Thank you. I'm saying that people should read that so they actually know the history of like this guy who's on Cesar Chavez Boulevard in Los Angeles, and they should know what he actually did.
And guess what? Your kids learning about that is truly not in question. It's just a nefarious headline like this that will indoctrinate people into thinking that that is the case, when that is simply not the case. The headline should have been, Texas Senate bill decides to exclude critical race theory from your students' teaching. That's what the headline should have been. Anyways, now, if you guys
Sounds fine by me.
ever need supplemental education, which in today's era of public schooling, everybody needs that, we have a series called The Book Club, and we just put out a new episode where Michael Knowles and Farrah Jimenez go over Tom Sowell's book, Race and Culture. You guys know I love Tom Sowell. There he is in the back. So I'm going to show you a little clip of this, and you can check it out at PragerU.com. Go to watch and click The Book Club.
All right, let's put our minds in motion. We have Race and Culture, A Worldview by Thomas Sowell, joined by the lovely Farrah Jimenez, CEO of a nonprofit and chairman of Broaden Liberty. Farrah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So Farrah, we have a rule on this show. All the authors have to be dead and gone, except sometimes there are some books that we want to read so badly that we kind of change the rules a little bit. So now we've changed the rules enough that you don't have to be dead, but you do have to be 90. We did Paul Johnson earlier on the show with intellectuals, and now we've included Thomas Sowell. More people have requested Thomas Sowell on this show, probably than any other author. Race and Culture, A Worldview. Highly controversial stuff. So much to get into here. So many opportunities for us both to be canceled and lose our careers. But before we do that, very briefly, can you just give us a quick summary? What is this book about?
So what Thomas Sowell is saying in Race and Culture is that it's not racism or prejudice or hereditary environment that impacts what are socioeconomic differences amongst groups, that it's much broader and deeper than that. And that he defines that as culture is what creates the socioeconomic differences. And culture is how you view the world, your mindset, whether or not you embrace education, what work skills and work habits that you have. I think it's an exciting book because he's looking at it from the context of history. He's looking at slavery. He's looking at things that have impacted different racial groups. And then he makes the case that maybe it's not as straightforward that these factors are pushing against individuals and therefore causing them to struggle, but rather it's something innately within their capabilities that they can change and improve upon that can make the difference in their lives.
Boom. If you guys want to see the rest of that episode, like I said, go to PragerU.com, click watch, and go to the book club. It is our newest episode on the great and wise Tom Sowell.
Phil Stroll on YouTube says Tom Sowell should be required reading for 6th graders. I think that's probably
Agreed.
true.
Right.
Agreed.
It's not just 6th graders, so it should be high school reading. It should be everywhere.
It should be illegal not to read Thomas.
Yes. You should be forced to read the book club. Or I mean, the Tom Sowell.
read Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, and watch the book club.
I mean, he's a perfect example of somebody who pursues nothing but objective truth and gives you nothing but objective truth. If you read any of his books, you may think they are a bit dry and a bit boring because he quite literally does nothing but go through studies and educate you on the pure facts, and he doesn't give you anything other than that. Now, here's the headline of today, and it's What Did She Say? And this is about J.K. Rowling, because she's been going through quite a bit of heat now on Twitter for making comments about the transgender community. Now, if you've been on Twitter at all, you've seen she's posted a slew of death threats that she has received for talking about transgenderism, and really not taking a very controversial stance on it, although everything is controversial these days. But what she posted was this tweet right here. And the quote is, "People who menstruate. I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Somebody help me out. Is it wumben? Wimpund? Woomud?" Which is a super base tweet. And of course, the left saw this, and I guess the left loves Harry Potter. And she's been getting hundreds of threats of violent action, death, really anything that you can name.
Would Harry Potter be considered a person who can menstruate?
I guess by the left standards, yes, if he identifies as such.
Is there a spell for that?
We got a spell for that. The spell for that is called hormone replacement therapy and sex reassignment surgery.
It's hormone replacement therapy, not therapy.
Now, she's attempted to defend herself on Twitter, and I'll show you these tweets here as well. She says, if sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth. Now, really, she really hasn't come out against the trans community. She says, I know and love trans people. All she's saying is that you don't get to blur the lines of what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a man, and I'm not going to concede that sort of language to you.
And she shouldn't. There's no reason for her to. She's made millions of dollars off of her books. You're uncancelable. Mm-hmm. Like, you might as well just go and say whatever it is you want. Make a book about a new Harry Potter book all about men and women and how they're calling everyone men and women. Like, you can do whatever you want. You have so much money. You're uncancelable. You should be able to go out and just say what you want.
Right. This is further evidence to Dennis's statement that the left has their own religion, and it's a religion that has more sins than any other known to date. And even when you are somebody who supports the left, which J.K. Rowling does, and fervently says that and is very adamant about the fact that you do, they will still attack you if you don't agree with one single point that they make.
Talking about it being a religion, like, you might want to question your worldview if it requires you to enforce it with violence on people who disagree with you. Like, if your ideas are so bad that you have to issue death threats to people who disagree, like, that's not a good look for your worldview. And really props to J.K. Rowling for just saying, I'm not going to participate in this lie. It's a woman. I'm not going to say people who menstruate. You're erasing the reality of that real women live, and I'm just not going to participate in it. And that's what we all should do. Yeah.
Unfortunately, she didn't go all the way with her statement.
Well, I know. Will's never
go
content.
full.
You're never fully.
I am never content. She could have gone full based and just went off and said how it really is. But, it's better. I'll give her half kudos for coming on and saying that, at least like saying that this is what we consider brave, saying that men don't have periods, and that's now breaking news. Brave?
No,
How
but
stupid is our society?
Well, the breaking news is that no, it's not brave. She's a horrible, terrible person who needs to be killed. That's
Right.
the breaking news.
No, I get that.
But so that's just illustrative of the climate we live in. But
No,
I agree. Like, she's not articulating a
This isn't
awesome
any-
defense of the truth and values, but it's refreshing to finally see someone who's just like, you know what, I'm not gonna participate in these lies.
And I think it's people like this who go through these experiences who are going to cause more change than anybody who's been conservative their whole life will ever do, because she shows the chink in the armor. She shows the real problem here, that even when you do identify with the left, even when you try to support them to the best of your mental faculties, they will come after you if you don't agree with every single thing. So honestly, I'm okay with the fact that she says, in my personal life, I do support trans people. And she says the idea that a woman like me, who's been empathetic to the trans people for decades, feeling kinship because they're vulnerable in the same way as women to male violence, hate trans people because they think sex is real and has lived consequences, is nonsense. It's going to be people like this that the left already identifies with, who wake up on their own through their own experience, that are going to create real change. So I commend her for coming out and defending the beliefs that she does have while still expressing love for the community that she's a part of.
I see so many conservatives on social media and like being not even rude, but challenging other conservative voices or calling people not conservative enough or whatever it might be that's like what conservatives do. I don't think conservatives have any problem with calling out their own side, but it seems like the left has a complete problem with calling out their own side when you have the actual intellectual, smart, educated, better people who are on the left, someone like maybe a Sam Harris among other people, who will not call out the wokeism as it is. Sam Harris actually is one who will call it the wokeism. Yep. So maybe that was a bad example. But you have a lot of people who are more prominent people on the left who aren't super involved in this wokeism left, but they won't call out the wokeism stuff because they're too worried about being torn apart by their own side, because the left, all it can do is destroy.
Mm-hmm.
Silence is violence.
Silence is violence, dude. That's exactly right.
But if you're and it's true, we all have a duty to believe truth and speak truth. And if you're participating in lies by not pushing back, then you're part of the problem that's allowing it to happen. So whether that's on the left or right, have enough cojones to call out your own side when they're making you deny your own intellectual honesty.
Which is exactly what she did. So little clap for J.K. Rowling for standing by her beliefs.
I just got to say this. When you said chink in the armor, I thought of Smaug on on The Hobbit. But here's the metaphor. Something like this happens, right? This whole worldview that they have does not work in the real world. And then something happens in people who believe in woke stuff that is like, wait a second, this has gone too far. It doesn't make sense to me. It creates that cognitive dissonance. That's the chink in the armor. Mm-hmm. That's the missing little breastplate on Smaug. And then you got warriors like Will Witt, who can be barred to get the arrow and shoot it into that little space and say, hey, here's the truth to insert it. And that's what we're doing at PragerU. That might have gone over your head, but I promise it was
definitely.
based.
I would much rather be Smaug than Bard.
Will's like, I want to burn all the leftists out of America.
That's not what I said.
My breath of fire.
He's full of hot
That is not what I said.
Oh my gosh.
He's full of hot
I thought I
takes.
teed that up so well for you to
No,
just
that
be
was
like,
good.
that's a great example.
No, it is great.
That's what we need to do.
It is great. I remember this was on ESPN a couple of years ago. You know Jeremy Lin? He played for the Knicks.
Yeah.
And one of the reporters said he was the chink in the armor of the sports game, and they came after him and said that was so racist. You remember that?
My gosh, that's so stupid.
I know. It's like an expression, but because Jeremy Lin is Asian, they say, "Oh, it's so racist."
So annoying. Oh my gosh. Well, one last story for you guys today, and then we will wrap it up. Now, this one is a story, and it's a subject matter that we've covered before in the past. Of course, all of these are, but this is that far more adults don't want children than previously thought. Now, this was conducted through a survey, and they were trying to find people who are child-free. And child-free does not mean that you don't have children or that you aren't capable of having children. It means that you are in no way, shape, or form interested in having children. And in a recent study of 1,000 people, they found that 1 in 4 Michigan adults did not want biological or adopted children in any way, shape, or form, meaning that they are quote unquote child free.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
What do you need kids for? We're a country of renters who 70% of millennials are living paycheck to paycheck. Why would you want children? There's literally no point. If you don't even have enough money to support yourself, why would you want children?
Is that another hot take
That's
from you?
That's a leftist argument.
I'm saying that's like what people think. If they have no money,
I think it's a fundamental lack of understanding the value of family and not being able to. It's a constant lifestyle of immediate gratification and an aversion to the sacrifices required to get long-term meaningful life. And people are too selfish and immersed in gratifying themselves in their life to settle down and invest in and make the temporary sacrifice of excluding other people from your date who you're going to date, and they're just not willing to make those sacrifices, and because they don't understand that the long-term payoff of having a family, because we're not, our stories, in culture, we're not showing the value of family. The heroic person is not the dad. The dad's always the loser in all of our TV shows and stuff, and our culture just does not fundamentally value that. We've lost it. And I think that's a bigger problem than, like, you don't need a bunch of money to get a lot out of marriage.
I think it's multifaceted.
And kids.
I think it's our cultural degradation of, again, not explaining what it means to be a man and a woman, and making children confused as to that matter, making children confused in relation to their sexuality. It's a matter of resources, and the fact that I'm sure if you went and surveyed a bunch of young people today, they would say that they simply do not have the money to have children, or do not ever see themselves having the capability of having children. And then thirdly, there's actually 3 and 4. There's selfishness, and the fact that the modern day feminist movement today has told women that if you want to be the cool aunt who focuses on her career and she goes flying here and there and she has all this money for food and alcohol, that you're going to lead a fulfilling life that's just as successful as somebody who becomes a mother. And then it's this idea that if you have children, and this is a massive campaign on the left, that telling you that if you have more than one child, you are committing environmental racism and contributing to the degradation of our earth.
Yeah, we covered that Harry and Meghan story where there was this leftist climate change publication that was like celebrating them for choosing not to have more than two kids
children
or something.
Right.
Yeah.
I did that video. I went and asked people to stop having kids for climate change. Tons of people signed my petition.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted problem.
Yes, there's a lot of
people not wanting to
things.
have kids.
Yes.
And also, fifthly, the amount of synthetic hormones and stuff that is in our environment that is making people incapable of doing so. But again, this article,
low T levels in men.
Right.
Lowest levels ever.
Yep. Lowest levels ever of testosterone in men, which would give you an aversion to having children just naturally and biologically. So there's so many different problems that come along with having a society that does not want to procreate and does not want to create families. And it makes us so much more susceptible to what is happening right now on the left, because when you don't have family, which is the strongest unit, the strongest bond that you can create as a citizen in this country, you have no view of what it means to actually be an American.
That's right.
So...
And I'll just say too, like, it says a lot that, like, how people have a innate inclination, or have since creation, that to have children. You know, it's like it's biological. It's meaningful. You want to pass on your name. You like, if you're a man, you want to pass on your legacy, and you want to raise children. Like, women want to have babies. Like, it's okay to acknowledge those things. But I think it says a lot about the day in which we live and the state of our culture, that the messaging and the ideology that's prominent in our culture today is so powerful and so strong that it's actually overcoming those innate human inclinations and making people not want to have kids. That's wild to me.
It's very sad. It is extremely sad that people do not want to create families anymore. And people like that are the ones who are celebrated in our society, that are told, oh my gosh, it's so brave of you to step out of the confines of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman, and to truly challenge the patriarchal idea that our society forces you to get married and have kids. It's very, very sad that is seen as something that is being forced upon you, and not something that is natural to your character and to your biology.
Well, there's going to be a massive breakdown of American and many other countries' cultures. I mean, when you have a population, you have people getting married past the age of 27, 28, which, as we've seen, and it happens about every 250 years. Societies and cultures break down when people get married late and have children late. You can look back every about 250 years at all of the different societies that we've had in not just America but around the world. And now we have these older populations, and we're already so dependent on the government. Imagine what happens when all of the older people in America start getting older. I mean, we hear ads on Fox News about Social Security running out and go buy gold and all those kind of things, but it's like, it's true. It's true, because Social Security and the benefits from the government are not going to be there, because you're going to have an entire population that is built on elderly people who now need to be taken care of by the government. That's going to happen in China, Russia, America. It's happening in a lot of countries. And so, yeah, there's going to be a massive societal break, a massive societal shift, I think, in the next 20 years or so. And unless you are prepared for it, you're not going to be prepared.
And there's a huge wanting to have kids and incentivizing people having kids and building a culture that celebrates having children is really what makes a strong country, if you think about it, because you will have accountability to somebody. You have accountability to your children now. You have a responsibility that goes far beyond anything that you'll ever have on your own, and you get a sense of fulfillment out of that. Yep. So now we live in this selfish culture where women are encouraged not to do that because they get to work on themselves. So little do women get acknowledged as themselves, as individuals. Why have children when you can just acknowledge yourself as an individual for the rest of your life and have no fulfillment when you die? And when you get this argument that, oh, no, we're not capable of having children. I don't have the resources to do that. And when people don't want to have children, they don't seek out living successful lives that give them the resources to be able to have kids. That is an incentive to go and get well educated. It's an incentive to go work for your country. It's an incentive to serve your country so that you can then have kids and build a meaningful relationship. But now the idea is, oh, I don't even need kids. So I don't need to work harder. I don't need to make myself successful enough to take care of other people. I only need to take care of myself.
Yeah. My own comfort, pleasure, achievement, whatever, is not enough of an interesting enough of a thing to like live my life for. You need something more meaningful than just yourself.
You do.
Being a creative coordinator is pretty interesting. I would live just for that.
And if you don't want to have kids and you want to be, subservient to yourself, sure, that's great. You can do that. But don't tell me that it's just as fulfilling as being a mother, that it's just as righteous as being a mother, that it's just as great as being a mother, because it's not. It's not. So don't lie.
Well, being a mother sounds great. Can I be one? Sounds
now
awesome.
You can.
Yes, you can, actually.
Because men can menstruate and have children and take all the womanhood that I have.
That sounds amazing.
Doesn't that sound amazing? Yeah. Anyways, guys, if you like this stream, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell to get notified every day when we go live. If you want to be personally notified, a system that we are working on, text live to 41776, and you will get a text notification sent to your phone when Will, Taylor, and I go live on Facebook and YouTube. If you are a young person, high school, college, or a young professional under the age of 35, consider joining Prager Force to meet like-minded conservative people. You can go to pragerforce.com and send in your application.
Yes,
and
you
that's
can.
it. Those are the
guys.
stories.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.